A random black tile? The remnants of a movie theater? A testament to technology? The ceiling art of Grand Central Terminal contains many secrets and oddities, much of which are in plain sight. Oh yes, there is history here. Whether you're experiencing Grand Central Terminal for the first time, or pass through it every day, you cannot help but look up. And there's a lot to take in, well beyond those acorns and oak leaves. Ever since it opened in 1913, Grand Central Terminal did not just become a testament to travel, it also became a landmark for the arts. The building played a major role in ushering in the City Beautiful movement in New York City. This movement focused on revitalizing ever-growing urban areas. Many of the buildings surrounding Grand Central Terminal, which constituted Terminal City, epitomized these developments, much of it funded through some of the first sales of air rights. The terminal even literally became an arts haven. It was home to the renowned Grand Central School of Art, which counted John Singer Sargent as one of its co-founders. Artists associated with the school included Willem de Kooning, Norman Rockwell, and Adams family artist Charles Adams. While the school is long gone, today's commuters and visitors will find the murals on permanent exhibit to be interesting in their own right. And yes, they have their secrets to tell. Let's start with the most prominent art installation in Grand Central Terminal, its celestial ceiling in the main concourse. Believe it or not, the artistic marvel that graces today's ceiling wasn't what the terminal's architects originally had in mind. Instead, they wanted to cover the ceiling in skylights. When they discovered that working in skylights would not be practical, terminal architect Whitney Warren turned to the French artist Paul César Helleu to create a mural. They decided to fill the ceiling with a starry sky to reflect what had guided travelers in previous centuries. Helleu had trained at France's esteemed École des Beaux-Arts. He was best known for his paintings of high society women during the Belle Époque. At the time he was invited to submit designs for Grand Central ceilings, he was in the middle of a second trip into the United States on an artistic commission. His sketch pulled inspiration from the Uranometria, an early 17th century star atlas created by German lawyer and celestial cartographer Johann Bayer. This atlas is considered the first of its kind to document the celestial sphere, showing the position of the planets, stars, and other astronomical phenomena from Earth's perspective. Here, Helleu's design showed the heavens as they would appear from October through March, namely showing the constellations from Aquarius through Cancer. He also included other astronomical details, including two gold bands stretching from east to west that represented the equator and the ecliptic, all against a vast aquamarine sky. In all, Helleu's creation showcased 2,500 stars. It also featured roughly 63 electric light bulbs of various strengths to simulate starlight. This detail fit in with one of the modern Grand Central's defining features, its embrace of electricity. Although Helleu established the ceiling's design, he did not actually paint it. That role went to scenic designers James Monroe Hewlett and Charles Basing, a pair of Paris-trained artists. They worked with a team of 50 assistants to complete the project. When the ceiling debuted, it was celebrated as a marvel. One railway official remarked to the New York Times in 1913 that he was glad the main concourse did not have any seats, otherwise he would be afraid passengers would miss their trains while taking in the stars above. Today's ceiling, however, is not the same as the one that greeted turn-of-the-century passengers on opening day. Decades of excessive water damage and mold buildup led the New York Central Railroad to board up the ceiling with massive, asbestos-filled rockboard sheets. You can still see the outlines of these sheets if you look closely. In light of the ceiling's condition, the railroad commissioned artist Charles Gulbranson, who had previously worked for Hewlett, to paint a reproduction of the ceiling over the tiles in the 1940s. However, the final product did not feature as much astronomical detail as the original ceiling. Moreover, it did not feature the original's light bulb effects. Over the next few decades, the new ceiling began losing its luster. It started turning black due to soot and air pollutants coming in from vehicles outdoors. During the ceiling's restoration work in the 1990s, many historians and preservationists asked if the original 1913 ceiling could be saved. According to restoration architects Bayer Blinder Bell, the original was likely damaged beyond repair, and that removing the asbestos boards could pose a health hazard. As a result, the renovation team focused on restoring the 1940s era ceiling. They also added the light bulbs back in, reintroducing the starlight special effect from Grand Central's early years. If you wanted to see how dire the ceiling was before the restoration, you do not have to look far. Next time you visit Grand Central, look up to where Cancer is on the ceiling by the Vanderbilt Avenue side. Just by one of the claws, you'll see a dark, brick-shaped area. This unusual area represents the ceiling's old condition, and serves as a barometer for preservationists on the ceiling's current state. But that's not the ceiling's only oddity. There are two others, one more obvious than the other. Peek up by Pisces, and you'll see a hole in the ceiling. Why is it there? Through no fault of the restoration team, though they had an opportunity to fix it. In fact, the whole comes courtesy of the US Army, which used the main concourse to showcase one of its major weapons in honor of the International Geophysical Year in 1957. Which one? The military's Redstone missile. It measured 63 feet tall and required a crew of 14 men to mount it. The source of the hole, however, is controversial. Some prominent outlets reported that the Army miscalculated the missile's height and that its tip bore into the station's ceiling. Others state it got there because the Army had drilled a ceiling hole to install a stabilizing rod to support the missile, because a busy train station is the last place you'd want a missile to go kaboom. As for the other curious part about the ceiling, it's more subtle and requires some astronomy knowledge to figure it out. At the time the original ceiling debuted, Grand Central's owner, the New York Central, claimed the terminal's ceiling was so astronomically accurate that it would be highly instructive for schoolchildren. However, one astute commuter pointed out that there was a major gaffe. The constellations were actually presented backwards. That is, except for the constellation of Orion. There is no agreed upon reason explaining why the constellations were arranged the way they were, or why Orion in particular was the lone holdout. What makes it more of a mystery is that the railroad hired a Columbia University astronomy professor to consult on the ceiling's accuracy. At first, the New York Central downplayed the quirk by explaining the view was meant to be from the heavens looking down to Earth. A plaque put in place during the terminal's 1990s-era renovation even tried claiming the backwards alignment was meant to reflect a point of view outside of our solar system. However, these latter claims did not pass muster with astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. In a blog post covering the terminal's ceiling, he wrote that going to the next star system away from the sun would not entail an extremely long journey, and therefore would not dramatically alter one's view of the stars. Even though the New York Central had the opportunity to correct the original ceiling during the 1940s repainting, the terminal's owners decided to keep things the way they were. When Gulbranson was asked why he did not change how the constellations were presented, he responded that the ceiling was meant to be decorative and not a map. Still, scientific inaccuracies and all, the ceiling remains a wonder for anyone who enters Grand Central, and, barring any dramatic changes, will be for many decades to come. Although the main concourse ceiling is the most well-known in Grand Central to contain stars, it's not the only one that does. In fact, there is another one that even features planets. However, it's not out in the open for all to see. You have to walk into a wine shop in the terminal's Graybar Passage to find it, specifically the store across from Track 17. But when you're there, it's a sight to see. Not only does it have ties to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, more on that in a bit, but it also harkens back to the space's prior history, which was very theatrical. Why? Because Grand Central at one point hosted a movie theater in this very space. The mural that's there, which is located just above the register area, used to greet theatergoers in what was then the lobby. While reports vary, many sources state that the theater opened in 1937. As the New York Times suggested in its reporting, the idea of the theater arose from commuters who disliked the isolation of Grand Central's main waiting room. The theater was large enough to sit 242 audience members, and became known as an intimate space to watch the latest newsreels, cartoons, and documentaries. In fact, the first film that screened there was Servant of the People, the story of the Constitution of the United States. The theater reportedly cost $125,000 to build, or more than $2.6 million in today's US dollars. It would have cost a quarter to gain entry. Greeting visitors would have been a series of seats in an early version of stadium-style seating. Sadly, you could not recline in sofa-style chairs like you would today, but for a place to spend some time before a train arrival, it was not too shabby. There was also an illuminated clock by the theater's front exit to help commuters track their train times. In addition, there was a bar for guests to imbibe as they waited. It even boasted an elevator connecting to the lower level, as well as specialized equipment in some seats to help those who were hard of hearing. As for the mural's connection to the Macy's Day Parade, that lies with the mural's creator, Tony Sarg. Sarg, known as America's puppet master, was behind some of the earliest and most iconic Macy's Day Parade balloons, including Felix the Cat and many of the Walt Disney Company's first character balloons. Unfortunately, Sarg's work went into forced hibernation for several decades after the theater closed in 1979. The space was converted for retail use, and the mural gathered dirt and grime behind a false ceiling. During Grand Central's renovations, restorers found the mural and brought its original 1930s details to light. Its celestial scenery continues to enthrall shoppers to this day. But that's not all. When you're done selecting your wine, turn right and walk a bit. Eventually, you'll bump into another remarkable ceiling mural. This ceiling, close to the Graybar Passage street entrance, is the creation of muralist Edward Trumbull, and it's a nod to the then revolutionary technologies that were overhauling transportation. The vault's west side, for example, showcases a giant electrified train passing beneath the bridge. The east side, on the other hand, emphasizes airplanes and airships, including Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis. Meanwhile, the north and south segments showed off advances in steel manufacturing, which was critical to New York City's growth both during and after the Jazz Age. While Trimble's 1927 mural was once very vibrant in color, much of it has now faded into caramel and brown. Still, much like the terminal it calls home, what remains of the mural attests to technology's role in our progress, reminding us about its continuing importance today. So next time you're in the terminal, make time to slow down and take everything in, because at places like Grand Central, even a ceiling hole can offer insight into a landmark's character and history. It's clear that whether you look up or around, there's more to these murals than meets the eye. Thanks for watching There Is History Here. If you enjoyed diving into the past with us, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Your support helps us continue exploring the stories that shaped our world, and the unique history that's right under our noses.